Crypto regulation just got passed in the House. President Trump is set to sign this into law tomorrow. But how long is this all going to take to go into effect? Does it happen right away? Or do we need to wait another 6 months or 12 months? I have all of the answers in this video. We're also going to explore the benefits to Ripple, XRP, and RLUSD. We also got some really interesting comments here from the current SEC chair about CBDCs and working with private companies. Could that be Ripple? Let's go ahead and talk about this. So Brad Garlinghouse tweets this out. The last major financial regulation bill was passed 15 years ago in response to the 2008 financial crisis. Tomorrow, the signing of the Genius Act cements the U.S.'s future in being a leader in truly innovative financial technology. Stablecoins. This moment is a historic one for one, am looking forward to all that is to come as a result of this transformational legislation. The big shout out to all of the Republicans who've been working so hard over the last few years to push this through. And they were even able to go across the aisle, get Democrats to come on board. And we had some bipartisan legislation. It's incredible when two parties can work together in this country. A lot can get done. And this is just an example of that greatness. So Eleanor Terrett, of course, big shout out to her. She posts so many good updates. If you're not following her, please do so. She says, breaking. I rarely use this term anymore, but this is time. I think it's warranted. All three crypto bills just passed the House, and the Genius Act is now heading to Donald Trump's desk to become the first major piece of crypto legislation signed into law. Despite the last few days of drama and uncertainty, Democrats and Republicans really showed up, voting in much more bipartisan fashion than almost anyone expected. We talked about this on Tuesday. A lot of people didn't believe this was going to happen. I did tell people that no matter what, this was going to get done. It was just a matter of figuring out how to get it done. And these people were able to do that. Here is CNBC in an update, and then we're going to get into how long this stuff is going to take to go into effect.
Crypto legislation clearing a hurdle in the House. This after a 9-hour vote to establish the rules of debate, though, on the bills finally passed. Now joining us to talk about the potential regulatory framework for crypto and what it all means is New York Department of Financial Services Superintendent Adrian Harris. Back in 2022, Harris passed stablecoin guidelines here in New York. Oh. We've made a lot of this. And I guess the biggest question is just how important is this bill ultimately? And if this all happens, what happens? I don't think people really actually even understand.
Right. Well, right now in the United States, there aren't really any rules of the road for crypto or stablecoin outside of New York and what we've done at DFS in the past 4 years. So it's really important that we have a national framework to govern this technology, especially when it comes to the supremacy of the dollar as the reserve currency. So putting this in place is going to be good for innovation, good for markets.
But just drill down, because I think people talk about Genius Act all the time and they don't even know what they're talking about here. I mean, we have conversations on the set recently about tokenization. People are tokenizing private company stock, for example. I don't think this bill addresses whether that's legal or not, technically.
No, so I think it's really important to distinguish crypto assets, tokenization of real world assets, and stablecoin, which is what Genius addresses, right? So Genius really takes from what we did in New York 3 years ago to put in place guidelines. There will have to be rules written, but things like one-to-one reserving. So to make sure there's $1 for every stablecoin that a stablecoin issuer issues, right? So that's backed one-to-one with cash or cash equivalents, that a consumer can redeem that stablecoin within a timely timeline. So
are you of the view, so right now Circle is the winner of the game.
Yep.
They're the only game, really. Do you see over time there being multiple circles as a result of all of this, or is this a winner-take-all proposition?
I think that's a really important question. I do think the regulatory framework coming into place nationally makes it easier for people to come in because there are clearer rules about what's going to be expected.
It's very difficult for these people to admit, Ripple and XRP have solutions, right? They're only talking about Circle because of the IPO. I think Ripple and RLUSD are going to catch up very quickly to Circle's liquidity because of how many financial institutions Ripple is currently working with. I would love to see them explore some of that, but we can't always get what we want, I guess.
But Circle, for instance, is one of our regulated entities. So they are already subject here in New York to the one-to-one reserving, T+2 redemption, the public attestations of reserves. So all of that is stuff that Circle complies with. Others will now have to comply with it nationally.
I don't know if you can say this or not, but would you short, for example, all of the credit card companies, anybody who owns one of these networks, anybody who's engaged in financial transactions of any sort,
Interesting.
given the idea that if stablecoins were to work the way they're supposed to work, you would think the margin compression on all of these fees would be zero.
All the credit card coming to the superintendent of the Department of Financial Services. You don't mean her. So you mean if you were a person who
If
could.
you were a person trying to
Would you?
understand where this all goes directionally, if this works the way it's supposed to work, you would think that it would take out a lot of margin. And then the question, who is going to capture that margin?
So that is the promise of stablecoin, right, is that it is redoing the financial infrastructure. So things can move more quickly, they can move more cheaply, faster, right, across borders and all of that. So I will stay away from giving investment advice or doing anything myself. I don't do that. But that is the espoused promise, is that this is going to remake the financial infrastructure in a way that's digitized. You can have smart contracts, right? So everything becomes more efficient.
Did you believe that's the case?
I think there's a lot of hope for that, but there's a long way to go. I think one of your guests earlier this week was talking about we're in the first inning when it comes to digital assets, right?
You were watching?
Of course I was watching.
What is the biggest risk of all of this?
That's good.
What's the thing you worry about and you say to yourself, if the bill gets passed and all the things happen, this other bad thing could happen?
Well, so one of the things in the bill in Genius is they allow for foreign issuers to issue into the U.S. unregulated for 3 years. I think that's a really big risk here. It essentially puts U.S. companies that are coming through the front door at a disadvantage. And I was watching earlier this week when Bob Diamond said, look, the mature companies want to be regulated.
Right.
By giving this 3-year exemption for foreign issuers. Yes. Right. It's a really big loophole in Genius. Part of it is just there's time between enactment and when the act becomes effective. That's 18 months. And then they've built in another 18 months.
Why would we give overseas entities a break that you don't have to meet the same standards that you do if you're doing it from the United States?
It's an important question. I mean, it's something I think a lot of regulators and others have been highlighting as a real important defect.
That's a good question.
So something that obviously is a problem here, but here is the Republicans taking a victory lap after this was all done.
So Bill delivered, and we have partnered with him to deliver here in the House. And now tomorrow, President Trump gets to sign into law his first of several bills to come that will help make America an incredible leader globally in digital assets. And with that,
you do start to wonder, right? If the whole goal here was to make America, the crypto technology, superpower, why would you give foreign companies this, kind of, all right. We'll have to dig into that a little bit more, but here we go. She said 18 months before this would go into effect. Now, is that true? Let's go ahead and dig down on this. So here's the update. I wanted to get a timeline of how long this is going to take. So here you go. The stablecoin regulation bill has passed the House and the Senate. It is being sent to President Trump's desk, who will openly committed to signing it. The White House has reportedly scheduled a signing ceremony for Friday, July 18th, which is tomorrow. The bill is expected to be signed into law in the next 24 hours. This video will come out Friday morning. I'm recording it on Thursday afternoon. It talks about Clarity Act, the broader digital market structure bill, passed the House, and it is moving to the Senate. So the Clarity Act, the actual regulation for digital assets, still needs to go to the Senate. They would need to approve that, and then it would go to the president's desk. So the only thing headed to the president's desk right now is the Genius Act. So immediate effect upon signature. Most federal laws become effective upon the president's signature unless the law specifies a different effective date. For the Genius Act, key provisions such as regulation and reserve requirements for stablecoin issuers officially become law once signed. However, the practical application of law depends on the implementing regulations that have been drafted and released by the federal agencies like the Treasury and regulators. Here is the timeline. Rulemaking process. Federal agencies are required to draft detailed regulations to implement the Genius Act. The law directs key agencies to finalize rules and processes within 1 year. So when she said 18 months, it sounds like it's 1 year. This means new compliance obligations for issuers and trading platforms will likely phase in over the next 6 to 12 months. So all of this should take place over the next 6 to 12 months, 12 months being the time when this is all supposed to go into law. So if it's signed in July 18th, 2025, this would be July 18th, 2026. Here, there is also this interim period. During the rulemaking period, stakeholders such as stablecoin issuers and exchanges have the provisional requirements or a transitional registration period given some time to adapt to the new rules. The Clarity Act here, of course, would have very close to the same type of timeline. I think you have about 6 to 12 months before true operational requirements and enforcement. I did see something that the Treasurer of the United States could move this forward if he'd so choose to within 120 days. We'll get some more information over the next few weeks here. Here's the SEC chairman breaks the silence on CBDCs. Let me play it.
House, of course, did, and that was the pushback. Can you talk to us a little about why that would be important to ensure that there is not a central bank cryptocurrency?
Well, I think it's best for that sort of thing to be left to the private sector. The government can mine the legal tender and the dollar itself, but the means of transfer and that sort of thing, I think, is best left to innovators. And we don't want to become like China, where you have the threat of a government that can run roughshod over people's bank accounts directly. So I think it's best to leave that to banks and financial institutions and whatever may develop in the next few decades as far as where people put their money and how they transfer it.
So the US government is really governments are usually bad at building technology. What they usually do is they go out and either acquire companies or acquire technology from companies once that technology kind of proves itself to be superior. And so if the US government had to pick between a private company for CBDCs, I just wanted to see kind of which companies would they choose here. I gave you a bunch of information, but I wanted to do a separate video on all of this because there's so much to talk about. But I just thought that was kind of unique hearing the SEC chairman come out and basically say, we're going to leave this to private companies and financial institutions. What are you guys thinking about regulation? How are you feeling today? How is your crypto account looking? I hope you enjoyed this update. If you did, please like the video, share it with somebody you know. We're on our way to 100,000 subscribers. You are incredible. Thank you for all the support. I really, really appreciate you. Peace. Nothing in this video should be taken as financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. Please seek financial advice if you need it. Let's get back to the video.